What's the most X-Files-like experience you've had in real life? I saw my mom holding my baby sister in her arms and taking her to bed. Not weird, right? My mom was still pregnant with my sister at that time. I went to kitchen and saw her still in there. Still pregnant. I didn't even bother going to bedroom to see who just went in there. Just nope. Stay in living room and mind my own business. Haha, love your reaction though. Like no way. Frick this. I am not playing your games. Frick off. Late to the party but I'll share anyways. One day I'm over at a friend's house and we go into the kitchen to do something. Both him and I are moving around the kitchen. All of a sudden we hear a pop and then there is a small spot of orange gooey stuff on my friend's shirt. To this day we have no idea what it was. Looked around the entire kitchen and didn't find anything that looked similar to the goo. We just chalked it up to an interdimensional being gizzing on my friend. Hate it when I get splodged on from the 4th dimension SMH. This happened when I was either 8 or 9. It involves a weird incident with my twin brother, and for a long time afterwards I thought I had dreamt it. So it was early evening after the sun had gone down, and I was downstairs in the living room watching TV. My brother was up in our bedroom reading. At some point this really uncomfortable feeling came over me, and I thought that my brother needed my help. I go upstairs, and our bedroom at the time was at the end of the hallway. As I walk down the hallway, and I'm standing right outside our door, and right as I go to knock I hear a voice say I have to leave now. He opened the door, said I think someone was outside the window talking to me, but the only thing I heard was that they had to leave. We were both creeped out, and told our mom what happened, but nothing ever came of it. For a long time I thought I had dreamt this, but a few years ago my brother asked me, hey, remember that time when we were kids and someone was talking to me through the bedroom window? Remember how he left right when you came in the room? What the heck was that? Because he remember it exactly the way I do. I'm convinced this really happened. I was 6 and my brother was 10. We had a 21-year-old foster brother who lived with us off and on. One night I woke up to see him standing in the doorway of my room, checking on me. I said his name in a questioning voice. He said, "It's okay. Go back to sleep." Around the same time, my brother woke up in tears. He said he'd had a dream about a knight standing on a hill, and it made him feel very sad. Turns out our brother died in a car crash that evening. This brought tears to my eyes. Sorry for your loss, even if it was some time ago. My wife calling my name. Nothing unusual about that, except that I did not hear it with my ears, as I was listening to Led Zeppelin's In My Time of Dying on the stereo, and it was cranked up. I heard it in my mind. I walked to the bathroom as I knew my wife was taking a bath. I found her face down in the water. She was unconscious, having suffered an epileptic seizure. Fortunately, I found her in time. Apparently Robert Plant had a traumatic experience that involved this song as well. Moral of the story, don't frick with this crap. Ghost car. I worked the overnight shift at an AM radio station back in the 90s. Saw a car come down the driveway to the parking lot. Went out to see who it was and the car was just gone. I would have seen if it had turned around or backed out. Thought I was going nuts until the announcer strolled out of the studio and said what happened to that car. Maybe it was Art Bell checking to make sure you weren't playing the wrong segment. In high school, my pal bounced a bouncy ball in his room so hard that we never saw it again. We tore that room up, never found it. There was a Twilight Zone episode like this. Parents hear their child calling them at night. Go into her room, can hear her but not see her. Turns out she fell out of bed, rolled under the bed and into another dimension. Not as spooky as some other things I've read, but I was sitting at my computer with my door kinda cracked open, enough to where I can see out. My door is right next to my desk so I can see out. I then see like 5 men in suits walk up the stairs and start walking to my room. I should be freaking out but I can't seem to move my head. Then they reach my room and kick the door open all the way. Then suddenly I can't move my head again. All the men are gone but my door is wide open. Still freaky to think about sometimes. It's like sleep paralysis but without the sleep. I shall dub this paralysis. Nothing too crazy, but definitely creeped my wife and I out. We have a Wii. The sensor bar is on the TV stand directly in front of the TV, as is anyone's. We don't have the cord wrapped up or anything, it just hangs behind the TV in a jumble. One night we were watching TV cuddling on the couch when suddenly the Wii sensor bar literally flies across the room till it got to the end of its length and fell to the floor. Like someone had grabbed it and chucked it across the room. We could find no explanation for this whatsoever. We had a cat and a dog at the time, but cat was sleeping in another room and dog was on the couch with us. We did have several birthday cards on top of the TV on display and one of them was on the ground. So the only thing I could think was that somehow we missed the card falling and it hit the cord and Viola. I tried for 10 minutes to throw that card as hard as I could at that cord and it didn't even move the bar from its place on the TV stand. Eventually we just chalked it up to WTF and moved on. But it was definitely weird. If the dog doesn't freak out and the cat isn't going berserk, it's fine. That's what I tell myself anyway. There are two. And if I told people who know me this, they would just laugh and think I was pulling their leg. When I was a little kid I could see into the hallway that connected my room to the house. It was a short hallway, maybe 8 feet long. I just happened to wake up for whatever reason, and an orb of light shot down the hallway, literally in a flash. It was so fast, all I could tell was it was an orb of light. At first I thought it was a reflected car headlight or something, but we live way out in the country and there were no cars in the driveway. Plus there was no way light could reflect back into that hallway. 3 walls of the house are embedded in the hill, very energy efficient. The second was about 8 years ago. I had a job as a security guard in a 100-plus-year-old building. A cop had been shot to death on the stairs 60 years ago, and the stairs are about 6 feet from my watch desk in the center of the middle floor of this building. We were open until midnight each night, and usually no one came in, but the staff sometimes worked late. So when I heard someone walking down the stairs, huge wooden stairwell that terraces and splits to go up another level, I didn't really think anything of it. The footsteps stop at my desk, so I close my shift report and look up. Nothing. No one. No thing. No change. Nada. I thought I was hallucinating due to lack of sleep, so I played along with my delirium. I went back to filling out my report. On a lark I said, I have no idea what you're looking to do, but we're both stuck here. If you don't mind, I have a report to fill out. Please excuse me. About 10 seconds later, the steps started away from me going back up the stairs. I was terrified, way too scared to actually look back up. But after that, I never had another issue in the building. Weird, was I freaking out? Or did I crack up a 60-year dead cop ghost? Who knows, really? I like how the ghost actually went away. What a polite ghost. We're all convinced that something is going on in the flat above the one my parents have lived in since 2002. For starters, all of us, me, my siblings, our parents, as well as some of our neighbors, occasionally heard furniture being dragged across the floor when no one was currently living there. Sometimes we'd hear the footfalls of a running child as well. There is also the fact that in the years since we moved there, 2 different married couples lived there, both divorced within a year. A third couple came the brink of divorce to the point where they stopped living together for a while. She went to her parents' home I think, and he also went to stay somewhere else. Apparently in their time away they mended things and, after hearing stories about that flat, decided to move out. No idea if they're still together as of now. Actually, before I moved out in 2009 a couple was remodeling it. Apparently spent a ton of money on it, but their relationship fell apart and they never got married. When I was 19 and my best friend was 20, we are nearly 40 now, we were driving back to my house after visiting someone at work. We were on a somewhat busy road. It was getting dark but wasn't quite dark yet. There were street lights and business lights everywhere, so visibility was still great. This road was 3 lanes in each direction and there was a concrete median dividing the traffic. I was in the left lane next to the median, and a traffic light was coming up. I saw a man standing in the median a good way before where the crosswalk for the light would be. It instantly made me nervous. As soon as I thought that, he stepped out to cross the street. My best friend and I both instantly braced for impact as I slammed on my brakes. We went through him. We didn't hit him, and because there was a car to my right I wasn't able to swerve out of my lane to avoid hitting the man. I looked in my rear view and there wasn't anyone there. I had come to a complete stop and we physically turned around in our seats to see how he had jumped out of the way. There was no one there and no way he could have ran off or hidden anywhere that fast. We both turned to each other and almost in sync asked each other, did you see that man? We both saw the same thing. A man. Couldn't describe his face, but it was a man's form and both of us remember being confused as to why he was wearing a white robe, and both being terrified that he stepped out in front of us, like he was committing suicide. I had a baby in the back seat. She was about 3 months old. She had been crying during the drive and went silent when we came to a screeching stop, which added to the weirdness of it all. We still bring it up occasionally and neither of us can come up with an explanation for what we saw other than something supernatural. Also, we both saw the white cloth fling across the windshield, like he was hitting it, but there was no impact, nothing. It was like he went through the car. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's a ghost in that baby now. Let me preface this with my morning routine. Wake up at 4:30 am. Out the door by 5:15 am. Clock in at work 5 exam. Never fails unless major traffic incident on the highway. Anyhow, one morning this past August, I am out the door as usual. Minimal traffic on the road. Boss calls halfway through my commute. Hey, you coming in? And I say yeah. Why do you ask? Boss, well it's 6:30 am and you usually call if you're going to be late. I look at my dashboard and yup, it's 6:30 am. Somewhere between leaving my door and getting on the road I lost about 1 hour. Check your timeline on Google Maps if you have it on your phone. It records where you go unless you disable it. You could use it to see where that hour went. Every few weeks my girlfriend or I will see STCH sight of colorful lights moving past our 3rd story apartment window at night. I, the Scully of the relationship, am convinced it is some trick of the light, with a police car's flashing lights reflecting off of something and bouncing back to our window. My girlfriend is certain that someone is flying a drone past our window to spy on us. I always run out to check as soon as I see the lights, but I never see a drone. The lights look like a drone, but they move too fast and they move through tree branches, so I don't think it's a drone. It's probably aliens though. Get some drinks and have a night with her, looking out the window, and drink every night until you see it. Oh okay, this one scarred me for a couple of months. When I was in high school, a guy and I got into an argument. He socked me in the jaw and started to fall to the floor. When I hit the floor, I instantly transported to a dinner table at which I was an adult. There was a woman sitting across from me, with a toddler boy and a preteen girl. I got a good look of my surroundings, a relatively modern house, with what looked like 2 floors. I felt like I belonged here, like I had some sort of emotional connection with all the people in the room, especially the kids. Then, the woman, my wife, asked me a question. When I opened my mouth, I threw up all over the table and woke up in a stretcher in an ambulance. Hours later, I found out I just had a minor concussion. For a while, I felt like I left a part of my life behind, even if it was only for a bleak moment in that world. To this day, I can still clearly remember all their faces and what the house looked like. Man actually hit you so hard you were knocked into the future. 6 years ago, I was hanging out with my siblings in our yard during a clear, sunny day around high noon, and I suddenly caught something moving in the sky out of the corner of my eye. When I turned to get a better look, I couldn't reconcile what the frick I was seeing. It was a metal cube just gliding through the air pretty high up. I proceeded to absolutely lose my crap and my sibs saw it as well before it disappeared behind some trees. We ran to the other side of the trees but it was already gone. Still creeps me out to think about. We did live right next to a military base, so make of that what you will. Thing had all the aerodynamics of a literal brick though. It hung in the air in precisely the way that bricks don't, is what you're saying. Sounds like part of a Vaughan constructor fleet to me. I driving down the highway about 3 am when a semi-truck pulled alongside me then swerved into my lane running me off the road and down a very steep incline. I remember going over, I gunned the engine, why I don't know, but as I was going downhill I kept telling myself to step on the brake. I couldn't move, it was like someone was holding my foot down. Then I heard this voice tell me, okay now you can step on the brake. Neither my infant daughter nor myself were injured and the only damage to the car was a hole in the oil pan. Both the tow truck and the highway patrol officer was incredulous that I didn't roll the car. They told me if I had tried to stop any sooner than I did I would have probably killed us both. It's like a vocal form of dad reflexes. I was digging a grave for a passed on pet in the woods behind my house. I leaned on my shovel to stop for a break. I saw some kind of animal dart in front of me and leaned forward to look at it closely. It had vanished. Next thing I knew, I woke up lying on the ground and for some reason didn't worry about it. I just got up and began digging again. It was a hot summer in the mountains, so when I got weak and exhausted a little later I figured I was getting heat exhaustion. So I went back to my mom's house to cool off. She freaked out because I was covered in blood. I had a big skip mark cut on the very top of my scalp, like something very sharp had skipped across my head like a skipping stone. It was in the middle of a property that backs to a big multi-county lake a mile or two back, and on other sides was just dense forest my family owned. No idea what it was. My money is you got hit by a stray bullet that skimmed your scalp, or something like that. Oh boy, this still wigs me out. I was driving back from a 16-hour road trip to see family and I was about an hour from home. The whole trip was just 4 days long, so I was pretty sleep deprived and had been driving by myself with very few stops. I was cruising on the highway and in front of me was a tunnel through the mountains. I hadn't driven through a tunnel on the way out of the state, so I became alarmed I had been driving the wrong way. I checked my GPS but had no signal on my phone. Unusual. The whole trip I normally have signal. I immediately took the exit before the tunnel to get my bearings. It was a big circle exit and at the end was a 4-way stop with a flashing traffic light. I took a left and the only thing around was a small 50s style diner and a parking lot. All the lights were off in the diner, obviously closed, but the parking lot was full of cars, like, packed. There were old classic cars and new cars but there was not a single soul to be seen. It was around 3 AM, so I didn't expect a crowd, but there wasn't a hotel or homes nearby, just a closed diner and parking lot full of cars. I didn't even slow down. I freaking noped out of there so hard, pulled a UEY in the street and drove back to the on-ramp to the highway. Once I was back on the highway I drove for about 30 minutes until the GPS came back. I was actually pretty close to home. My friend and I once drove back to try and find the diner but we never could find it, or the tunnel. I like to think that if I would have pulled into the parking lot my car might have been added to the collection and no one would have seen me again. Wise choice. Probably nothing supernatural but also probably something very illegal. In my hometown area there is a ghost story about a large grey bull that roams the local farms and bellows when seen only to vanish into thin air. When I was a boy in the Scouts I heard that story at a meeting and it made my blood run cold and gave a distinct taste of salt in my mouth. One of my earlier memories was being in the bottom of our fields at home and walking back uphill towards our house. I looked up and in front of me was a gigantic greyish blue bull standing between me and the house. I had never seen it before and we didn't have cows, so when it bellowed I turned tail and ran down through the field. When I looked back behind me, in a wide open field with nowhere to go, it was gone. My grandmother didn't believe me of course, but years later she was our den mother, and when that story was being told I looked up at her across the room and she was already looking at me and white as a ghost. That's freaking awesome. Every year on my birthday for the first 20 years of my life I woke up at the exact time I was born. 5:56 AM EST. When I was stationed in the UK I woke up at 10:56 AM and thought, huh, broke the streak, until I realized I was 5 hours ahead. Your circadian rhythms are on point, homie. Growing up my brother beat the crap out of me constantly, like, cut eyes, bloody noses, police called beatings. One day at the library I was reading a book about some tribe who believed you could go into people's dreams and cast a sickness on them. So I did all the pre-dream groundwork described in the book and that night I went to sleep and had a dream. In the dream I was at one end of a long road and my brother was at the other end. I lifted my hand and pointed at him. I cast a sickness on you. The next day we're watching TV and he said, I feel like crap. You have mono. I don't even know why I thought of that, but it was the first thing that came to mind. Frick you be was all he said and the conversation was over. A week later it turns out he did have mono. I was freaked out. I was pretty sure I was a witch and would burn in heck. To compound matters, I had a friend whose dad was a professor. We'd get stoned with him and he'd always tell me random facts. I'm at his house and he starts telling me about this tribe that went in people's dreams and cast sickness. I was paranoid as frick that people would learn this horrible thing I did. Now that I'm not 15 and an idiot, I assume it was just the creepiest coincidence ever. From what you've told me, your brother deserved it. I have a friend who once told me about a time when he was in his teens. He slept in a bunk bed with his brother in the lower bunk. He said he dreamt a demon wearing the skin of a man threatened to kill his brother. In order to save him, he somehow managed to procure a knife and put the knife to the neck of the demon. The demon tells him, the only way to rid evil is through evil. He hesitated and woke up to find he was pressing a butcher knife under the neck of his younger brother. He was still sleeping, fortunately, but when he awoke, he told the same dream exactly, except he was attacked by his brother in the dream and said the exact same thing. The only way to rid evil is through evil. Nothing similar happened after that and it gave him some serious issues that led him to go through psychotherapy for a while. I can't say if it's true or not. As far as I know he made the whole thing up, but I don't think so as he was reluctant to mention it. I had to share a room with my younger brother growing up. I woke up one night and see him sitting up in bed across the room mumbling, "I have to kill it. I have to stab it," over and over. Threw a pillow at him to wake him up and went back to sleep. Driving south down a back road parallel to a bunch of farm fields that end about 3 or 4 miles at a heavy pine tree line and the road curves hard to the left, east. It was about 8 PM when I was on my way home from work, so the sun was setting to my right, west. I was probably listening to music, just zoning out waiting to get home, when just past the tree line I saw this smallish orange ball of light rise up from behind the trees pretty slowly and came to a hover about 1 or 2 finger thicknesses above the treetops from where I was. Instantly I'm thinking this isn't the sun, because when I looked to my right the sun was setting. Now my eyes are freaking glued to this thing, and the whole time I'm hoping my car isn't going to mysteriously shut down either. But while I'm thinking that, this orange ball is getting bigger and turning yellow while another smaller ball of orange light starts rising up next to the first one, and the second begins to get bigger and turn yellow as well. I can't freaking believe what I'm seeing and don't think anyone else will either, all the while trying to make sense of it. These 2 yellow balls of what I assume are light are now hovering above the tree line that I'm heading reluctantly toward, but once the second had matched the first in shape, size and hovering height, they both just seemed to move south as they got smaller and smaller until I couldn't see them past the horizon. There was no sound that I could hear from them either, military VTOL or otherwise. I still really want to know what it is. I personally think it was something hovering up to takeoff level. Being in a forest, that's really the only way. And the color plus size change was the engines warming up before they finally left. TLDR. Driving at sunset and saw 2 extra balls of light. Punctuation. When I was 12 I spent the night at a friend's house. We were up late chatting, falling asleep, listening to some music, Hotel California, and suddenly the music stopped. A bright blue light shined into the bedroom window, lit the room up, then dissipated. Hotel California resumed like nothing happened. We were frozen, dumbfounded, and freaked out, getting lots of chills and feeling weird. Did you see that? I reluctantly got out of bed to peek outside. Nothing there but an empty parking lot by a wooded area. I looked at the clock. It said 2:14. For the next couple years it became somewhat of an urban legend among my friends. We'd stay up until 2:14 at each other's house and dare something to happen like that again. Lots of fun, scaring ourselves, but nothing happened. It just became known as 214 and we'd joke about it whenever we saw that it was 2:14. 2 years later I was at a different friend's house, up late, watching movies in the living room. Hot dog the movie. It was over, and we shut off the TV and were just chatting like normal, falling asleep. Suddenly, a bright white light shined into the living room window, lighting up the place, then dissipating, just like the blue light from 2 years before. I immediately was struck with fear. Did you see that? My friend replied. Yeah, I was filled with dread as I turned over to get a view of the VCR to see what time it was. My body covered in chills with anticipation. It was 2:14. My whole body was covered with shivers, my eyes watering, just freaking out. I already knew I didn't need to get up to look out the window. My friend's backyard is just all woods. Nothing could be back there. Suffice to say, with 2 different witnesses to go along with myself, 214 was a confirmed real thing in my life and I've been haunted by it ever since. Nothing like it has happened since, but it sure did color my adolescence and make me intrigued and fascinated by all things paranormal, unexplainable, weird, fantastic, etc. It was no surprise I became a huge X-Files fan. I have a friend who has this weird thing with 1234. I know it's not 2:14 and there was no blue light around the time, but he always looks at the clock at 12:34. I think it's funny. Anytime I see 12:34 on the clock I think, hey David. I swear I had an abduction-like experience. I went to bed just like normal and I had what could only be rationally explained as a really lucid dream that I awoke to a darkened room with a light above me. I was in a medical chair and what made me wake up was an extreme pinching pain around my cervix. I was comforted by a human female who held my hand and told me to go back to sleep. It felt like I was given a sedative and everything went dark and I don't remember waking up that night, only that I became aware that I was staring at my ceiling and I couldn't move. Sleep paralysis. And when I was able to move I rolled over. I was still scared at that point but I managed to go back to sleep and never told a soul. It wasn't weird until I went to my next gyno appointment a month later when I was told I had abnormal scarring on my cervix that wasn't there before, so it always made me question if my experience was real. I have a hard time talking about it for fear of being thought of as crazy. Wow, that's crazy, man. I walked the 2 miles home from my closing shift at Taco Bell. The whole time I felt uneasy. When I get home I have a brief moment of relief as I shut and lock the door. I still lived with my folks back then in their split foyer house. The basement on the front of the house was half underground, while the back is not. So at the entryway I turn on the basement light for a second to make sure the floor is clear of my brother's toys. After confirming it was, I turned off the light and walked down the stairs. Sometimes you get that sensation in the corner of your eye that something's there, and before you realize what's going on, you're staring something outside the window. I only saw glowing red eyes, staring back at me. I was frozen. It had to have been over 7 feet tall. Then I bolted into my room, got under the covers and stayed there for a few minutes hoping I was just imagining it. Then the back porch door opened, and my dog, who was kenneled right next to the inside door to that same porch, starts going apeshit. Thank God for that, I thought, as I heard the porch door open and close again. TLDR. When I was a kid, a monster almost got me, but my dog chased it off. 5 friends and I were playing flashlight tag hide and seek in his huge farm across the pond. He has nothing but forest. We're all playing, and 2 of us, my friend and I, have these sweet walkie-talkies. Both of us, plus another, were afraid to go into the forest, but the 3 of us decided to go, and since we could hide forever in there, we go in and split up, me by myself and the 2 others together. With the walkie-talkies, we were talking for maybe 30 minutes back and forth, pretty stoked about our hiding spots. I even went up a tree and bit and found the perfect little nook to just chill in. About another 20 minutes goes by and I haven't heard from them. I walkie in, and nothing. Okay, maybe he didn't hear it. I walkie again. This time, I get a beep back. It stayed live for about 5 seconds. Are these things working? I tried again, and this time, I heard a distinct breathing. Alright, well, they have to be messing with me. Even so, it was freaking me out. I hop out of the tree and start heading back towards the house. As soon as I get down, I start hearing a howling. I thought it was coyotes, but there was something off about it. It sounded just like someone in the distance howling, like a coyote. I was starting to get really freaked out by this point, so I hightail it back towards the house. I kept hearing the howling and could swear it was getting closer. I picked up pace and started running towards the edge of the tree line. As soon as I crossed it, the walkie sounded again and there was a cackle. Like, which cackle? I have never ran faster up to the house. Once I was back up, I met up with one of the friends who were seeking and told them about it. Dude and are still out there. They definitively freaked me out. He goes, UHH, they're back here. They said they lost track of you and just came back thinking you already came back. Turns out, they came back but lost the walkie coming back. So, something found the walkie, or I was just hearing things. TLDR. Went into woods with friends and walkie-talkies. Which found walkie and fricked with me. I think they bamboozled you, man. My close friend lived in NYC, and she was driving with some cousins and got in an accident. This is about 2 AM Sunday morning. I'm dead sleep. I dreamt the entire crash, and the scream from when they hit the median woke me up. It sounded like she was right next to me, screaming in my ear. As I got my phone to call her and check, she called me. I told her bits and pieces of what I had seen, but she figured I had guessed everything, until I described the dress she had on, and she freaked out because she had never shown me the dress. She had just bought it, and I even knew theirs was a tag still on it. Second, dreamt I was in a car crash with a good friend. Post I've seen in this thread. Definitely didn't expect that when I woke up this morning. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.